What is human freedom? Is it the ability to do whatever we want? Is it something that would disappear if we feel like I could not have made any other decision? Or perhaps when freedom and necessity are at the maximum, as C.S. Lewis said, they are the same thing. Welcome to Intermarifica, New Mexico, the channel where we look at things of wonder from the perspectives of faith and reason, philosophy and theology. I'm your host, Daniel Kelly. And today what I want to talk about is what I think one of the most wondrous things and hardest to really pin down is human freedom, and freedom at all, in fact. I've done other videos on this where I think it's difficult to just blame the, evils explained by freedom, and you can go check those out. But today I want to talk about one of the things that sometimes it's hard to wrap our head around is the idea that in heaven, or if we knew God as he really is, we just choose him. And how, or the saints in heaven, are they no longer free? So to us that could sound, and I think reasonably can sound, kind of hellish when you don't have that choice anymore, right? In hell, the people, the reprobate, don't have any choice anymore because they're enslaved to their passions, they're enslaved to their sins. But in heaven, the saints should be totally free, right? But they couldn't, because they know God, they see God as he is, they're like him, and they couldn't choose anything else. So doesn't that sound like freedom has been destroyed? Well, recently, through way of Raissa Maritain, she's a really, really good author. I was reading some Henri Bergson, and he has a lot of difficult stuff that I'm not getting into that right now. Just, you know, if you read his stuff, there's going to be some stuff that's not right. But that's true for anybody. But anyways, I was reading some of his stuff, and he has this kind of idea that freedom is when our true character does something. Like a lot of times, let's think about it this way. And he inspired this line of thinking in me. I'm not saying that all this comes directly from him, but he made me think. So it's our character. Freedom is when our character speaks out, basically. So there's all these things that we do, actions we take, that they're not really free. They're just affected by external things to us, how the weather is, if I'm sick, if I'm grumpy, all this exterior kind of surface level stuff. But when our whole character, and it's not always, and he focuses a little bit too much on that. It doesn't have to be rational, I think, but that's a different conversation. But it doesn't have to be rational. You can see it really in moments of crisis, where you just act in accord with your deep character, or you don't. You go against your deepest thing. That's the moments of where freedom is really, really, shows forth. Like, that's what makes somebody a hero or not a hero. They don't necessarily have time to rationally think through in this situation of crisis what they're going to do, whether they're going to push the person out of the way of the car or whatever. But their character, the deepest of who they are, comes out in those moments, right? So freedom, and it doesn't have to just be moments of crisis. It's just, that's when it's really, really clear that our freedom is acting. We're acting in accord with our deepest self. Okay, so if that's true, does that mean that people can act in accord with their deepest self, choose freely, doing evil things? And yet people can freely choose to do evil things, definitely. But I think it's not where this makes sense to me of the church's idea that we enslave ourselves to sin. Because when we freely choose to do evil stuff, we're not acting in the deepest accord with our deep character. Because our deepest character is Imago Dei, the image of God, right? And who is the image of God? Jesus is. We're little Jesus. Our true identity is being alter Christus. That's our true deepest identity. God is our true deepest identity, not in some kind of pantheistic way, but in that we're images of him, right? So when we enslave ourselves to these superficial things, and that's what we're doing when we sin, this kind of surface stuff that's always getting in the way of our deeper self. And that, when you think about that, makes sense of the situation of the damned. Because they focus so much on their external life and not their interior life that they're no longer free at all. C.S. Lewis, I think, describes this well in his book, The Problem of Pain. And I'll read you a little bit of it. Lewis says, What is cast or cast itself into hell is not a man. It remains. To be a complete man means to have the passions obedient to the will, and the will offered to God. So Lewis is kind of putting the will at the deepest part of us. And I have some difficulties with that, but that would be a different conversation. To have been a man, to be an ex-man or damned ghost, would presumably mean to consist of a will utterly centered in itself and passions utterly uncontrolled by the will. It is, of course, impossible to imagine what the consciousness of such a creature, already a loose conagry of mutually antagonistic sins rather than a sinner, would be like. Right? So when we've sinned and sinned and sinned so much that we throw ourselves into hell, because God doesn't cast people into hell per se, we send ourselves to hell, and hopefully, God willing, we don't do that. But we've just focused on our the surface stuff. So all our mutually antagonistic bad habits, these vicious habits that we've latched onto, all these addictions, all these emotions and stuff. And emotion isn't bad, but it is when that is the deepest, when these surface emotions are what we've attached to, these surface passions and desires, and we've just latched onto us. So our core, us, has basically been destroyed. And that's what it means. And we see in the images of hell in Scripture are images of destruction. So we've destroyed ourselves because we've just lived on that surface thing. What's the reverse? In heaven, the blessed are totally free because they're totally just choosing what they would want to. Is somebody not free because they choose the best of all the options? No. So there are things where, let's say, like I'm doing a run through in an RPG or something, or a game, and I want to, on purpose, give myself a handicap. Maybe I'm playing chess and I say, hey, I'm better than this player, so I'm gonna have less pawns or something. All that's we're free because both those are good options. We're just seeking a different good. But all things considered, choosing the best option, that is totally free. And God is the best option. And that's what's most true to our deepest self. And being true to our deepest self is what freedom is all about. But remember, our deepest self, being true to our deepest self doesn't mean, oh, whatever whims I have. It means being true to the way that we image God. Truly. And that's what makes the saints way more interesting than the damned. The damned are boring. They're all they're all on that surface level. But the saints are all unique because they all uniquely show forth the infinite God. Well, I hope that was helpful for you. You have a very good day. God bless you.